G'day folks, Wren here, and today I'm going to be reading 1-star reviews of my favourite books. So if you haven't already noticed, my favourite books are these two bad boys. So we have Wolfsong by T.J. Klune and Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. I adore these books with my entire soul, and I reread them every year basically. I thought, oof, why wouldn't people like these? So we're going to start with Wolfsong. So Wolfsong is the first in the Green Creek series by T.J. Klune. It is a paranormal, I don't want to say paranormal romance, but there is romance in it. It is about queer werewolves who have daddy issues, and they find each other and themselves, and it's the best found family I've ever read. So it is kind of just these traumatized people coming together and healing. This first book follows Ox, who lives in a small town, and he's kind of alone, and he lives next door to a family who's also a little bit weird, and he makes friends with the youngest child there called Joe. They become like best buds, and it goes through about, this book kind of goes through about 10 years of their lives, and then the family moves away, and when they come back, shenanigans ensue. Queer werewolves, found family, it's amazing. Why would I think people wouldn't like this? I think a lot of people probably don't read it because I see it recommended as werewolf smut all the time. No! There is one sex scene in this, and it's at the very end. I'm talking like epilogue type ending. One. That's it. Am I just reading differently to everyone else that I don't think that qualifies as smut? I don't know. So people might not like it for that, or they're expecting something different, and so they give it a low rating. Maybe the writing style, because this has a really unique writing style, and it's a lot of repetition, especially when you get the point of view from a wolf. When they're in their wolf form, they have like a different way of speaking and thinking and communicating, so maybe that. People might think there's a inappropriate age gap. There is an age gap between Ox and Joe. Like, they meet when they're very young. I think when they meet, Joe is 10 and Ox is 16, but nothing romantic at all happens until, I think, Joe, there's a bit of an attraction awareness when Joe is 18, but nothing at all happens until Joe's in his early 20s, and so Ox is in his late 20s. There's no inappropriate thing going on there at all. They are just friends until they're in their 20s, and then they become partners. Nothing inappropriate going on there. I don't know why people wouldn't like it. Do they not like werewolves? Do they not like having their heart ripped out and then put back together? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. Go to the 1-star ratings. Ooh, I'm like nervous. Okay, well at least the first one's, the person is aware that it's a unpopular opinion. I initially picked this up because the third book in the series features a couple with an ace character. True. But after reading this, I doubt I'll ever make it there because, whoa boy, this was very much not for me. Well, they're saying it's a good thing. I knew it. Okay. However, this story is primarily a romance, and the entire relationship that developed between Ox and Joe made me wildly uncomfy. That age gap was a choice. Basically, Joe mated with Ox when he was 10 and Ox was 16. When Joe was 17 and Ox was 22, things started to get romantic, and I don't feel super right about it. Okay, so the whole Joe mating when he was 10 years old, like, there's mates. These are werewolves. Of course there are mates. And Joe knew that Ox was his mate when he was 10 years old. Yeah. His parents were okay with him pursuing a friendship with Ox. But Joe was also like, I very much know nothing is going to happen for the longest time because I'm a child. Like, nothing happens. Just because Joe knows doesn't mean anything inappropriate is happening. And it's very much just on Joe's side. Ox doesn't know about the mating thing until, I don't know, very much later. I can't remember exactly when he finds out, but he finds out a long time later. And then they just, you know, they have the discussion of, do I want this? Do I not want this? Like, nothing happens until they're older. Oh my gosh, this book really didn't work for me. There's mostly positive reviews, but it's one of the worst books I've ever read. I guess I just don't really like werewolf books, and to be honest, werewolves haven't interested me since Twilight. Twilight just ruins everything. Age gap! Everyone talks about the age gap! The repetition, I thought that might be a thing. There's just so much repetition in this book. There's an example of repetition among the countless others. At one point it seems fine, but the repetition happens so often that you can't ignore it. Very, very irritating. Okay. I don't feel that way, but okay. And the touching. They didn't like the touching? So the pack just keeps touching and kissing each other. They do this because they want their scent on each other. They like the smells of each other, which is just so weird. All of this touching makes me uncomfortable. Perhaps werewolf books just don't do it for me. Yeah, that is pretty much a staple of werewolf books, is you know, you want your pack to smell like you. That's werewolf books. Sorry. Possessiveness. Again, this is a werewolf book. That happens. Yeah. I see what you mean, but that is another stereotype of werewolf romances, so. Nudity. Everyone is very comfortable with nudity in this book. I think too comfortable. I find this outstandingly freaky. When they turn back to humans afterwards, none of them wear clothes. There is just something alarming about seeing your family members naked. I feel I would be scarred for life. Yeah, I gotta admit, the first time everyone was naked around each other when I read this, I was like, this is your family, this is odd. But werewolf rules, you know, they don't apply. Courting. Why wouldn't you like the courting? Sure, that's how you court people, sure. He brings Joe a dead rabbit and mini muffins. Now I want to ask, why the hell would you bring a human a dead rabbit? He thinks it will make Ox like him. Sure, that's how you make people like you. Bring them a dead rabbit and tell their mum you like to buy him. And the mum is all for it, encouraging this behaviour. I think that if someone ever brings you a dead rabbit as a way to propose, then run. Yeah. It's funny because it's true. Like, that happens. But Joe doesn't know how to court people. He's a wolf. He does wolfish things. And the way wolves court people is by bringing them food. And the food that they get is what they hunt. I don't know, to me that felt like such like a non-issue of all the things you could be upset about with this book. Like, it was a funny moment. Because Ox is like, no Joe, get that away from me. I don't want a dead rabbit, thanks. And they're just like, oh, okay. I'll bring you human food. Anyways, oh my gosh, they did a word repetition count. Oh my gosh. Word repetition, pack, 439 times. That's dedication. But also, that's the whole thing. I should have been wearing my Green Creek merch, because I have a jumper that says pack, pack, pack. That's like the whole thing of this book. They say pack 3 times all the time. The word growl was used 96 times. It's a werewolf book. Of course it was. Snarl was used 58 times. It's a werewolf book. Mate was used 44 times. It's a werewolf book. Okay, I think I'll read one more. let me start by saying that this book was good at the beginning. I liked how Ox's character was built and liked how the first years of his friendship with Jo went. Things started to go downhill from then, when even after Ox found out about werewolves, they still kept from him the fact that he was Jo's mate. A lie by omission is still a lie. Yeah, but angst, tension, you know how books go. The way the Bennett family dealt with Ox and what he meant to Jo also nagged me. The fact that they expected Ox to fix Jo bothered me immensely. That's not how trauma works. I don't care if Jo was a werewolf or not, his dependency on Ox was toxic and obsessive, even from a young age. I get it, he was a possessive werewolf, even for a shifter it was too much. I get what you mean about the, you know, the Bennetts wanting Ox to fix Jo. Valid, very valid. Oh, things got worse. The major problem for me was after Ox's mum died and what Jo did. Yeah, that is a really awful moment in the book. It's like the big angsty moment. And like, also people who want to get into TJ Klune because of like House in the Cerulean Sea don't expect this to be anything like that. None of TJ Klune's books are the same as any others. He's a master at what he does and can just flip between different worlds and different vibes. This is angsty as all hell, and it's amazing. But like that whole part about what happens and Jo leaving and lying, and it is such an awful moment, but what comes out of that, like the way Ox grows from that is so beautiful. Ugh. Sad. People just randomly saying it's just the worst book. Give me information. Oh, okay, I'm gonna do one more because I love this book. I wished I'd liked this. I pre-bought this because I love Lightning Struck Heart. Good book as well. Don't expect it to be anything like this. Lightning Struck Heart is hilarious. This is heartbreaking. But this didn't do it for me. It was about twice as long as it needed to be. The story dragged. About half of the secondary characters were indistinguishable from one another. That is also a gripe I have with this series, is that I can't remember the names. Rico, Tanner, and I want to say Connor, but I know it's not Connor. I do agree with the characters, the side characters kind of falling into one another and not really having much of a personality. That is very, very true, and is the thing I don't like about this book. You've got the three boys, they're men. You got the three men from the garage that are very much one person, and in the second book actually there's like a typo because that like flips between two of the characters. So there is definitely validation to that. It is something I don't particularly love about this, but you can sometimes get a little bit more from these characters throughout the series. At the same time, you also don't. So very valid point on that. I'll be honest. I get what Clune is trying to do, I think, but it didn't happen. I was just sort of muddled mess that went on and on and on, despite the fact that the actual story could have fit into a novella. Disappointing book, fails as a supernatural novel, a supernatural romance, a gay romance, and just in general. Wow. Okay. Oh my god, I thought we were over all the Twilight thing. The disgusting possessiveness, controlling attitude, and utter stupidity. I can't with this. Okay. I think I'm going to stop it there because I could go on and on. So I understand some of those reviews. Yes, it's long. Yes, it's repetitive. The repetitiveness is part of its charm to me. It's really just, it's a whole different world. Like, oh, it's so good. The possessiveness and the mate talk and the scenting and being around each other. It's a werewolf book. What do you expect? Like, I don't know. I really love werewolves and werewolf books. I mean, look, there's a wolf there and there's wolves all over my place. I love werewolves. So I guess I knew certain things going into this that were going to be there. The age gap thing, like I said, nothing happens until they are in their 20s. TJ Klune even put up a thing in his stories the other day because there's, you know, been a resurgence for this series because it's getting reprinted, and he made a note. He was like, everyone going off about the age gap in this, nothing happens until they're in their 20s. Just because they met when they were kids doesn't mean anything happened. Anyways, I'm going to get off my high horse and we'll go to the next book. So, Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is the first in the London Calling series, and it is a queer fake dating romance. It's very British. It is full of banter. So we've got Luke and Oliver. Luke is kind of, I would describe as like the disaster gay. He is the son of like the 80s stars, so he kind of gets into the tabloids sometimes when he messes up, which he does a lot. And the company he works for says he really has to clean up his image or he might not have a job. So he enlists the fake of one fake boyfriend, practically perfect in every way, which is Oliver, who is a barrister, a barrister, so like a lawyer, but like British lawyer. And he wears suits all the time, and he's very like put together. They agree to fake date, and it's beautiful, and they fall for each other, but they're so disaster. But like the banter is great between them, and I really love that Luke kind of finds himself through this fake relationship, because he's really in a really dark place at the beginning of the book, and being with Oliver kind of reignites his self-worth, and I love it. Why do I think people won't like it? The banter. Because it is so banter heavy, I think people could not like it. Also people that don't like the fake dating trope, maybe. That's about all I can think of. I don't know why people wouldn't like it. 1 star. It has very little 1 stars. Oh, okay. It says trigger warnings, rape and sexual assault jokes. I DNF'd this book. Okay. This ended up being awful. A character literally said they wanted to sexually assault someone. I'm disgusted. Also, the main character forced the vegetarian love interest to eat meat after he hadn't for years. Like, why is that funny? I think it goes without saying that I would never recommend this book again. Okay. I can't remember the exact sexual assault joke that they are talking about. I guess this falls under people not liking the banter. I am very much against sexual assault jokes. They're not jokes. It's not a funny thing. It is an awful thing to go through. So I'm surprised that I missed that in this, because I'm usually pretty aware of things like that. So I can't speak much about that. So Luke gets Oliver to eat meat because Oliver is a vegetarian. I'm also a vegetarian. And the thing with Luke forcing Oliver to eat it, he didn't really force him. He was kind of talking to him about, like, you know, why are you a vegetarian? Because Oliver actually has disordered eating, and Luke is trying to help him with that in any way that he can. And the reasons that Oliver gave Luke about being a vegetarian, they kind of fell into that disordered eating, because it was, you know, oh, I want to be skinny type thing. And so Luke was like, well, you know, why not try a burger just to see what it's like? And Oliver is very much on board with this. Like, he's trying to be like, oh, no, I shouldn't, but wow, I really want to. So I didn't think it was forced. I think they talked about it and Oliver was like, yeah, I'll do that. I just struggled to understand how anyone found anything charming about this particular book. Yeah, the idea that Luke was going to be fired for being the wrong kind of gay felt very questionable. Yeah, definitely. It's awful, but like, it's a fake dating thing. They have to have a reason to fake date. Like, yeah, it was awful, but it was still like, it was enjoyable enough that I was like, yeah, it's fine. And his company gets better after a while. A poorly executed cancer storyline. The guy was faking about cancer. How do you get a good point for that? Fade to Black sex, yeah, that was annoying. I will admit, the Fade to Black sex was annoying because it's an adult book, you know? And the last 3% of the book introducing the idea that maybe Oliver has an eating disorder, and there's just absolutely nothing here that I connected to. Yes, the disordered eating is only explicitly mentioned at the end of the book, but once you get that hint, you're like, oh yeah, a lot of his eating habits could definitely be described as disordered eating. I realize that this is a romantic comedy, but the premise and character motivations are ridiculously flimsy. When they inevitably start to have feelings for each other, they insist on keeping their arrangement fake for no logical reason. It's a fake dating romance, what do you expect? I mean, some of these reviews, like for Wolfsong as well, it's like, did you not know what type of book you were getting into before you started reading it? Or is this the first type of that trope that you've ever read? Because it's fake dating. There's not a lot of logic in fake dating, and that's what makes it fun. It doesn't help that Luke is completely insufferable for the first 60% of the book. Yeah. There is some information that comes out later that would make Luke's actions somewhat more understandable, but the details are kept hidden from both Oliver and the audience for way too long. All of the side characters are one-dimensional clowns, and none of the parents act or speak in a way that is at all believable. I understand about Luke being insufferable. That's kind of his whole charm. It's like, he's so annoying, and he knows he's annoying, but he doesn't know how to not be annoying. Like, he's very aware he's not a great person, but like, it's part of his charm. I will agree that when I first read it, I wasn't really in love with Luke's character because yeah, he's annoying. But then like the second read through, I'm like, wow, yeah, I really like Luke. And like his growth is great and his banter is funny and he's so awkward. So awkward. And just like a ball of anxiety. I'm very, very sure that Luke has anxiety. It's not ever explicit, but as someone with anxiety, I relate a lot to some of his feelings. Oliver also has anxiety. They're just two anxious boys trying to figure stuff out, and it's not always working. The side characters, I 1000% agree. They are very much background characters. They don't have much going on for them. And yeah, their interactions are a little like unbelievable. It is very much a, you know, where there are some books where you're reading it and you're like, wow, this is real life. You know, people actually talk like this. I feel like I'm watching a documentary, not reading a book. This isn't one of those. This is very much I'm reading characters, not I'm reading real people. But it's a book. Sometimes books do that. And Luke's parents definitely don't sound like real people, but like they're faded celebrities. They've got to be a little odd. I'm not even sure what I read. I wanted to like it, I swear, but honestly, WTF. I hated the main character so much. He is so unsure of everything that I'm genuinely thinking that he is unsure of his existence. He is very much unsure of his own existence. He's a ball of anxiety. For good reason. He does have very good reasons for why he is the way he is. But even if he didn't have reasons, he doesn't need an excuse to be who he is, you know? Every action, thought, move, looks, or look ends with a question. That's anxiety. I keep saying the main character because I can't even remember his stupid name. It's Luke. No plot, no story, no real conflict. The plot was the fake dating, that he needed a boyfriend to get a better reputation. And he's dealing with his father's issues. I guess that's the plot. The story is two anxious boys trying to survive in a world that is just rough for people with anxiety. And they fall in love and find like a home within each other and they grow. No real conflict. I would say there's conflict because there is the whole conflict of, oh, we're fake dating, but now we should stop. and trying to figure out real feelings. There's always conflict in that. The problems were pathetic at best, or maybe even just blown up representations of real life situations. It's a romance novel, what do you expect? They're very rarely realistic. The rest of the characters were two-dimensional, and as I write this, I doubt that they even had a dimension. That's true. This book also had a few tropes that I think that could have been executed so well, like the fake dating trope, the one bed trope, the public declaration of love, etc. I thought they were done pretty well. Different opinions. Oh, I didn't think I liked anything about the story, except maybe one thing, Oliver. Yeah. My first read through, I was all about Oliver. Everything. Oh, that man has my heart, not gonna lie. High key reminds me of Hernando from Sense8. I don't know. I absolutely loved his whole being, the way he walks, talks, dresses, thinks, everything. He's considerate AF and knows exactly what to say and how to say it. He's super polite, a gentleman, basically an incredible human being. The only reason I would recommend this book would be because of him. Yeah. I mean, Oliver's pretty great. I want to read more. I'm still not understanding why people are giving this 1 star. This book was truly atrocious. The story was dull, the main character was a garbage human, and I was bored the whole way through it. The only reason I kept reading was because I liked Oliver as a character. Paul destroyed what I liked about him at the end though. I cannot fathom how this book is compared to Red, White and Royal Blue. I'm utterly perplexed at the hype around it and the positive reviews. Would not recommend. This shouldn't be in the same vein as Red, White and Royal Blue. You know, the only reason they're compared is because they both have male-male romances. That's it. There's nothing similar about them at all. And I hate that so many queer books get recommended to Red, White and Royal Blue when they have nothing in common. The only thing that is even remotely similar is the queer relationship, just because they're queer people. Super annoying. I'm gonna put a caveat. I love Red, White and Royal Blue. It's a good book, but it's not the greatest thing in existence, and all books should not be referred to because of it. This has got nothing to do with Red, White and Royal Blue. They're even like different age brackets. Like, come on. But they have very different vibes. I do understand that, you know, the main character was a garbage human. Yeah, he's very aware he's a garbage human as well. Part of his charm. And like, he grows, you know. But like, being bored, I was definitely not bored with this. I was having a great time. It was so funny. This was utter trash. Might elaborate, might not. To preserve the brain cells that didn't die while reading this. Wowza. Well, okay, one more. Because I'm still like, why? People give me explanations. Sorry, but it's a no. For me, Alexis Hall's latest novel is both overhyped and overpriced. Okay. Seriously, 2 grown men who are comically insecure. Question mark. Yes. Men can be insecure. It's a thing. I still want to find more reasons. I'm still just... Fake dating is one of my favourite romance tropes of all time because it's so ridiculously fun and heartwarming and generally a good time for everyone involved. However, because I've read multiple books and countless fanfiction with this trope, I know exactly what I want and my expectation is higher. Aside from Oliver, whom I adore. Everyone adores Oliver. I don't like any of the characters, especially Luke. And since he's the protagonist and this book is told in first person, this is deadly. My biggest problem with him is that he reads like an angsty teenager in a young adult novel set in high school, except that he's 28 and has a day job. I don't expect every late 20s adult to have their lives together, but when they keep referring to perfectly normal behaviours as grown-up stuff, it gets on my nerves. The thing is, when I was reading, I kept telling myself, wow, this dude has depression. He needs professional help, man. It would probably be a different story if it went there. Instead, it glosses over Luke's problems with such a flippant tone that I can't take anything seriously. It doesn't help that his only other personality trait is being queer, or that every side character is one-dimensional, annoying, and forgettable. Yeah, Luke definitely reads like a teenager, and I'm going to say that trauma has like prevented him from being able to really grow that much. And by the end of the book, he does grow. He realizes what has been going on in his life. He realizes what he needs to improve on and what he might need some help with. He gets there. And also, as someone in their late 20s who doesn't have their life together, I can relate to some of the things he's talking about. Like at 28, I was also not super adulting. I mean, like I was, but at 28, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I still very much felt like I was in my very early 20s when I was 28. And like, I don't know, like, does no one else feel like an imposter when they're 28 and feel like they should have their life together and like have the house and the career and the, you know, the spouse with the 2.5 kids and all that kind of stuff? And then when you don't have that at that age, you feel like a teenager that doesn't have their life together. I'm gonna stop going on about how I related to Luke. But, you know, Luke does definitely have some problems and he does need some help. And yeah, they don't get addressed in the book, but the book's not about that. The book's about the fake dating. Okay, I'm gonna stop because I'm understanding why people are giving this a low rating now. They don't like Luke. Basically, yeah, they don't like Luke, which is fair. I didn't particularly like Luke the first time around, but I still had such a fun time with the book that it was fine that I didn't like him. And then by the end of it, I did really like him. And then on my second reread, I loved him. Like, you just gotta like get to know him. Right, so those were the 1-star reviews of my favorite books of all time. It kind of just seems like, at least with Wolfsong, people went into it not realizing it was a werewolf book, and then they got confused by the age gap, which was not an issue because they don't do anything until they're in their 20s. And it seemed people didn't like boyfriend material because Luke, the main character, is a disaster. Which is the funness of it. And he is a disaster, but we love him anyways. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had some fun. I definitely had some fun reading those 1-star reviews. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.